Research shows 1 in 13 Americans suffer from PTSD, with military personnel at an even higher risk. And while the first step may be seeking professional help, there are other outlets when combating post-traumatic stress or depression. The NIMICs are hoping that both nursing students and people at home realize those suffering from depression or alcoholism are still human. They're someone's son or daughter, brother or sister. And so instead of judging them, reach out to someone who may have lost their way. Toby and Chris were lost, but it was here at this church that they were able to reignite the flame they never thought they'd find. Toby Magruder is a two-time national adult fiddle champion. Her music is where this story begins over 20 years ago at a mini mart.
She would come in the mornings to get a pop on her way to work, and I was going to ask her out the next time she came in because she was caught my eye, and so she never came in again.
But a chance meeting at Willie's Saloon, where Chris was taking free dance lessons, set these two on a path some may call fate.
I made sure I told him I was playing in a band the next Wednesday, so maybe I would see him again.
And they did. And after going on their very first date, 42 days later they were engaged. 3 months later they were married. But the marital bliss didn't last long.
I had a real fiery temper. He's really even-keeled. I'm typically the one that fights.
11 years into the marriage, the two reached a breaking point, and like a sign from God, Chris learned their church would be offering marriage encounter.
So realizing that I loved him, right days after I met him, and I still loved him. Yeah. Our whole world is all about my happiness and what I need and what I get from people. That's what's important, and that's not what's important.
We left Sunday night holding hands, and it's been 12 years since then, and we're still holding hands. So.
Today, Chris and Toby say there are still arguments and things aren't perfect, but they're a stronger couple because of marriage encounter.
You have to stop asking yourself, how can I get them to be what I want, and start thinking, how can I be what they need?
There are the songs.
Suicide is painless.
The PSA.
1 in 10 high schoolers seriously consider suicide.
And then those left behind.
Tyson, I love you so much, and I don't know how I'm going to go on without being able to and listen to your voice anymore.
Brad and Peg Nimick adored their son Tyson.
As a young guy, he was always a fun kid to be around.
But it seemed Tyson dealt with the stresses of life much more severely than his peers, even at a young age.
He would worry about things most grade schoolers wouldn't, and so that I would check with other mothers. Do their children, do their little boys worry like this?
This stress continued into his adulthood, causing depression and ultimately alcoholism.
I think after he had that first drink, that first
experience, numbed him.
It numbed him for
so
a
I thought,
while.
I can get rid of this. Yeah. Probably not even cognitively, but just he knew he felt better.
And after battling his demons for nearly 15 years, Tyson put an end to his pain permanently New Year's Eve, 2011.
He hung himself with an electrical cord.
Today, Brad and Peg say they refuse to let their son's death be in vain, speaking about their son's suicide to a group of nursing students at Great Falls College, MSU, in hopes of preventing further tragedies.
There are things that you can do as caregivers to be there for people and not judge. Stigmas with addiction, right? Stigmas with mental health issues.
There's real people behind some of the difficult things that we see as nurses, and just to remember the people inside of those behaviors.
You can make a difference with someone's life.
Brad leaving the students with an emotional letter he wrote to his son after his death.
I hated seeing you in your misery and wanted so much to make it better. I think about what else I could have done for you, but realize that nothing could have stopped the final solution. You chose to stop the misery that ultimately overwhelmed you.
For ABC Fox Montana, I'm Emily Scarlett. Licensed clinical professional counselor Janet Schneider says oftentimes people underestimate just how common PTSD and depression are. But there are ways to evaluate one's mental state.
Take an inventory of themselves and say, how has my behavior changed since traumatic events? Or maybe I just feel depressed. Maybe I'm socially withdrawn.
Research shows 1 in 13 Americans suffer from PTSD, with military personnel at an even higher risk. And while the first step may be seeking professional help, there are other outlets when combating post-traumatic stress or depression.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've always been into music. It's just something that I continue. I always come up with something in my head in the middle of the night, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
A graduate of the ROTC of Fayetteville State University, Orrin Lofton moved to Great Falls, Montana to work as a satellite operations officer on the Malmstrom Air Force Base. But one day on his way to work, his life literally came to a screeching halt.
I pulled over, unfastened my seatbelt, opened the door, wham!
A disabling car wreck caused Lofton to lose his recent promotion, his marriage. Ultimately, he suffered depression. That is, of course, until he found his music.
See, the military, we're all regulations. This is the way you do A, B, C, and D. This right here, I can use my imagination.
Music is an awesome coping mechanism that a lot of people use. It can help people relax, even sleep.
Today, Lofton says with his music, he feels completely fulfilled and excited for what the future may bring.
You build a pyramid. And rather than, being in a rush for seeking fame and glory, just build that pyramid, and sooner or later when it gets discovered, people will see what you've done.
For ABC Fox Montana, I'm Emily Scarlett.